I call Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to lend Labour's support to the Support for Children in Hardship Bill at its second reading. But as is the way of this government, this is really the government doing as little as it can possibly get away with while trying to ease its own conscience about the large increase in children living in poverty under its watch. And while this is not going to address the issue, the Labour Party will support it because doing something is better than doing nothing. But that's about the best that I can say about this bill, because in fact it will not address the issue that the government purports that it will address. The government and the minister who just spoke is trying to paint a picture where this bill is going to lift children out of poverty. Well, in fact, what the Select Committee found was that each family, and actually the small number of families are going to be entitled to this $25 a week increase in their income, that in fact the per family rate will end up being $23.10 a week that each family is going to be entitled to. And when we think about where this bill is targeted at the families that are in the most severe hardship. They are severely below the poverty line. And so, in thinking about that, while it's going to make a little difference, $23.10 for that whole family is not going to lift any of those children out of poverty. It will alleviate things a little, but not a lot. So it's not going to fundamentally address the issue. Because sadly, in New Zealand, in Aotearoa New Zealand, a food-producing nation, 305,000 children live in poverty in this country. And that, Mr Speaker, is a disgrace. That is something that none of us should tolerate and we should not feel at all pleased about. The National Government, for 3 elections in a row, has promised the brighter future. It promised the brighter future. What is the result? 305,000 children in this country living in poverty. That is a disgrace. That's an utter disgrace. And the best they can do is at this late stage start offering $23.10 for these families to try and claw their way out of poverty. But at the same time, they've got housing costs going through the roof. That government's policies have got housing costs going through the roof. They've got childcare costs going through the roof. And they've got all of these increased pressures on families, and the best they can do is offer $23.10 per week to the families that are in the most severe hardship. Well, it's all about priorities. They're laughing about it, but it's all about priorities, because what do we hear the Prime Minister spending most of his time talking about? He's talking about a flag referendum, spending millions of dollars on that. He's talking about cuddly cute cat pandas and spending millions of dollars on that. But when it comes to addressing children in hardship, they haven't got an awful lot to say or an awful lot to offer. Mr Speaker, there are measures in this bill that will make things a tiny little bit better. But there are measures in this bill that will harm families. And I'm going to talk now for a few minutes about this new requirement for families in receipt of benefits or social welfare payments when their youngest child turns 3 to go out. They are forced to find part-time work of now 20 hours a week. So I want the people of New Zealand to think about where these jobs are. Where are these jobs? Because yesterday the unemployment figure increased to 6% for the whole country. But in my region, in the Waikato region, it increased to 6.7%. That increased by 1.7% over the course of just the last 3 months. That means that 3,800 more people in the Waikato are out of jobs now than they were 3 months ago. So where are these 20-hour-a-week jobs that all of these, primarily women, are going to be forced to go out and find when their youngest child turns 3? Where are they? What sort of jobs are they? Well, here's my guess. The sorts of jobs they are being forced to accept because of this provision under this mean-spirited government are the 0-hour contract jobs that government purports to be against. In fact, in another piece of legislation, they're codifying it to make it legal for people to be required to work these 0-hour contract jobs. Those are the jobs that these women are going to be forced to accept. Jobs with no security, Mr Speaker. Jobs with no certainty over income. And then the $23.10 a week is going to start looking pretty sick. It's going to be looking pretty sick indeed, because that's the mechanism that this government is using to force people into less and less secure environments. Less ability to provide for their children, less ability to plan for the future. Try going and asking for a mortgage at a bank with a 0 hours contract job. Because the first thing the bank's going to ask you, and the first thing many financial lending institutions ask, the first thing many places where you get financial support ask you is, what is your weekly income? And for many of these women who will be forced to go out and look for these jobs and accept them when their youngest child turns 3, they will be forced onto these sorts of insecure jobs. And what's that going to mean for their family lives? Because what it's going to mean is they're going to be required to make themselves available but have no certainty of work. They're going to need to go and find childcare and not have any certainty that they're going to actually get the income that allows them to pay for that childcare. So these are the very real situations that all of these most vulnerable families are going to be forced into as a result of this legislation. Mr Speaker, if the government was serious about lifting children out of poverty, then it would look to the sorts of policies that the Labour Party has put forward. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about our Best Start package. Because if the government was serious about this, it would look to a comprehensive package like the one that is proposed by the Labour government, by the Labour Party. And that is that every child... Well, how's the package going? I'm going to test it out right now, Mr Williamson, because this is the package that would really make a difference. $60 a week per child extra for every child under 12 months of age. For every child under 12 months of age. And they say, because this is the only thing that the national government can think about, is they say, how can the country afford that? How can the country afford their failed policies that is actually increasing unemployment and not getting us anywhere very fast? How can the government sit there and be proud of their record when in fact all of their policies right here, right now are demonstrably failing? They are demonstrably failing. So $60 a week for every child up to the age of 12 months, and for those families at the lowest end of the spectrum, then that $60 a week payment would continue up until that child's 3rd birthday. Now that would make a difference. If I was the minister who just resumed her seat, she should feel ashamed. She should feel ashamed. She got up there and proudly said that 1/3 of the families in the severe hardship category are from families where the parents are in paid employment. Shame on you, the national government, that you believe that that's okay. Because it's your policies, it's the national government's policies that have put working families, 1/3 of the people in the severest hardship, those children, their parents are out working. Their parents are in these 0-hour contract arrangements. These parents are being forced out to find these inadequate, insecure jobs once their children turn 3, and that is nothing to be proud of.
I'm sorry to... I neglected to ring the 2-minute bell, but you've had more than 10 minutes. So,
Mr. Speaker.
that was a concession for my faux pas. Yeah.